Hi, this is Michael Cohen. I'm a Dallas elder law and estate planning attorney. I'm joined by my good friend Don Crawford Jr. Don and I have been going back for a while. He's back now we did a radio show together, and now we're doing podcasts as time changes. So do we. And so this podcast is actually a YouTube as well. So today we're going to talk about so often people are concerned about beneficiary designations to avoid probate. They say
Mhm.
that the focus that so many people say, I heard that if you have a beneficiary designation, it avoids probate, which is true. It's
Mhm.
true. If you have an IRA, you have a beneficiary. If you have an annuity, you have a beneficiary. If you have a bank account, you could have a beneficiary that if it said paid on death. If you had if you wanted to have a home that went outside of probate, you could have either a transfer on death deed or a ladybird deed. So
Mhm.
if you have a car, you could have a beneficiary designation through the Department of Motor Vehicles. You could avoid probate altogether in any number of ways. In fact, the state legislature in 2025, even if you don't own the land on a mobile home, you could have a beneficiary designation. So there's all sorts of different ways to avoid probate. No problem, right?
No.
Oh, no, Don says, oh, he's heard me before.
Well, I would, if you remember all 10 of these reasons why trust and wills are better than BDs, I'm going to be very impressed.
All right.
So,
Well, we'll try. We'll try.
okay.
We'll see if my long-term memory is better than my short-term memory. I'm not
Okay.
positive it is, but we'll give it a shot.
Alrighty.
All right. The first thing is what happens if the person dies before you? I name my child as a beneficiary. They're younger than me. Younger people never predecease the older
Never.
person.
Right.
I always talk about my wife's grandmother, Grandma Gussie, who, a very common name these days, Grandma Gussie, who only lived to be
Mhm.
107 and a half. Only. As the judge told me last week, I said, you can only do the halves after age 100 or before the age of 10.
Exactly.
So anyway, two of her three children predeceased her. Luckily, my mother-in-law is still alive. Uh, and one of her grandchildren even predeceased her. So the longer you live,
Yeah.
the more likelihood that people are living longer.
Right.
So there's no guarantees in life that whoever your beneficiary will survive you.
Right.
The second thing, let's say that your beneficiary is disabled, okay, and on public benefits. Well, first of all, let's just say that they're disabled. That's one. If they're disabled, can they handle it? If they're mentally disabled, maybe not. You may have to seek guardianship. So you may want to have things go in a trust. So if you have a will or trust, by the way, on the beneficiary designation on that predeceased beneficiary, you could say what happens. You could say, well, I did that on my beneficiary designation, my signature card. But usually, even on a will and trust, you say who even is the ultimate beneficiary if everybody dies.
Okay.
If you have a beneficiary who is disabled, they can't handle it. So then you have to go to court. If they didn't have any assets, then you may have to go to court to seek guardianship. Or maybe they're on public benefits. That's another one. If they're on public benefits, well, public benefits are means tested. If somebody's
Right.
on Medicaid or sometimes veterans benefits, if they inherit, they look at how much assets are to get the public benefit. If they inherit, they all of a sudden have too much assets. I named as an IRA beneficiary my niece who took 14 years to get on Medicaid and now will lose Medicaid because I, in my largesse, decided to name her as a beneficiary.
Okay.
Let's say that the beneficiary, and you could have a supplemental needs trust in answer to that. In a will or a trust, you could have a special needs or supplemental needs trust to avoid loss of those public benefits.
Good.
Let's say you have creditors. If you inherit, if you name, I name child as a beneficiary. Now, of course, they're being sued by A, B, C, and D, and all their money is going to go to their creditors. Does that bother you?
Mm.
So that's probably number four. I'm not sure. Um, let's say that the child or the beneficiary is a spendthrift. As soon as they get the money, they spend it.
Off to
Well,
Vegas.
by the way, on each one of those, whether the person was just had creditors, if you name them in a will and trust as your beneficiary, that also could be as a direct beneficiary, but you could have a trust within your will or a trust within your trust to protect them.
Right.
Same thing if they're a spendthrift. If they're a spendthrift, they get the money, they spend it. So instead of giving it to them directly, okay, you could have a trust that would have that.
Perfect.
Let's say that you're concerned that your spouse may remarry and all your money would go to some family you don't even know.
Not good.
I said all to my spouse, a joint with rise survivorship. I had somebody in last week. Their spouse died. They're 92 years old. They now have a boyfriend. I had somebody else that's 87. She just got remarried.
Mhm.
It's like the old joke that we tell, that I've told on the air before about the 67-year-old man who came into my office and I said, and when did you say your father died? He said, I said, my father died. My father's 87 years old and perfectly good health. I said, excuse me. I said, when did you say your grandfather died? He said, did I say my grandfather died? My grandfather's 107 years old, perfectly good health. In fact, he just got married. I said, why in the world would a 107-year-old man want to get married? He said, did I say he wanted to get married? Okay, he had to get married. Well, in any event, the bottom line is people are living longer and they
Yep.
could get remarried. And if it bothers you, well, instead of it going to them outright, you could have it go into a trust. I
There you
don't know
go.
what number that is, if that's 6 or 7 or whatever it is, but the same thing could be applicable for your children. Are you concerned that your children spouse could remarry? I'd say I have a daughter who's in her 20s, which I do. And let's say I gave everything to her. What does her will say? It probably says everything to her spouse. Well, son-in-law could get remarried.
Right.
Would I rather it go to my children or would I rather it go to my other child?
Yeah.
Whatever it may not be. I may not care. I have a
Mhm.
good son-in-law. He's
Right.
doing really well with me on fantasy football.
Yeah, exactly.
And what else is more important? I mean, who could ask for anything more?
He loves the Jets and you love the Cowboys, so obviously they're not picking the home favorites or
We're
anything
not
like that.
picking Super Bowl favorites here.
Oh, no, they're really not.
So in any event, if you're concerned about the spouse of your child,
Right.
then you could have things go in a trust.
Right.
Today, earlier today, there was 4 children, one of which had a drug addiction.
Mm,
If you give the money to the person with the drug addiction,
you can
what's
know.
going to happen? It's just
Yeah.
going to go.
Yeah.
So number 8 or 9 or whatever it is, how can you protect them? Well, you
Right.
could have some sort of incentives. So, for example, you take a hair follicle test, you have to go through certain things with the clinics or whatever to make sure that you're taking steps to get rid of the addiction. And then if you have the carrot and the stick, maybe it's for education. I want you to do well in school. Maybe it's to do well financially for however well you do. I'll let
Yep.
you have more. So you could have incentive planning. A
Right.
beneficiary designation has nothing like that.
Right.
Tax planning. Oh, well, if I just give it directly to somebody, does that any tax planning? No,
Right.
no. There's lots of different types of different planning you do for taxes, um, whether it's estate taxes or if you want to do charitable planning. There's all sorts of different types of things that you could do. So I don't know. If you just have a beneficiary designation, it just doesn't always do it. So the moral of the story is, well, what is it? First of all, you have to see what your goals are.
Hmm.
Are you concerned? It seems like in every will and trust, even in our most simple ones, usually if there's, let's say, a potential beneficiary, let's say there was a grandchild and you have a child. You say, oh, my child's over whatever age. But what if your child predeceases you?
Mhm.
So even in our basic wills and basic trust, you have a contingent trust if that your child predeceased you.
Mhm.
And we always have, as an elder law attorney, we always have a disability type trust
Mm.
because
Good.
30% of Americans become disabled at some point in their life.
It's good.
So we feel like that you never know. And, a lot of people don't realize a lot of younger people may be on Medicare. They're
Right.
under 65 because they became disabled. Maybe they
Mhm.
worked and then they got disabled somehow. So they're on Social Security disability and then Medicare.
Mhm.
So maybe they can handle things and maybe they can't. But if they can't, and maybe they can now, but they might not later, then we have a trust for them. Or if they're on a means tested public benefits, as we mentioned earlier, then that would not jeopardize that benefit.
Mhm.
If you had an IRA and it went to a special needs trust, you have to put and what's called and the person was on, let's say, supplemental security income, which is a Medicaid program. You can't there's limits on income, so you have to put a provisions inside the trust to accumulate. So even though there might be a stretch for over their life expectancy on the IRA if the child is disabled under the Secure Act, it stays inside the trust, and thus there's no income which jeopardizes Medicaid eligibility for too much income. So, I had the IRA as a beneficiary to my beneficiary. Even if I have it go into a trust, I have to do it a certain way. If I have a beneficiary who is on means tested public benefits. Well, anyway, so I think that that's probably 10 or so. I'm not really positive. I didn't count. So let me count the ways. So the moral of the story is it's not just having a beneficiary designation. Probate's not that difficult in Texas. And I'm not telling you, you can avoid probate also with trust. So it's not just about avoidance of probate. It's
Mhm.
protecting your loved ones or whoever you want under the terms and conditions that you would like and making it as easy as possible to reach your goals, whatever they may be, and the protections that are desired.
I couldn't agree with this more. I'm really glad you addressed this today. There are 10 reasons, and there's probably more than 10 for all we know. You just rounded it off smartly, so that we don't burn out the listener, but there's a lot more. And I don't see, I could never be burned out because it's always so fascinating to me. But you've always said, let the person pick what's best for them. Every situation is different, every relationship is different, and you're just there to either create a turnkey transaction for them or pull rabbits out of the hat. Either way, however the client looks at you, I look at you as the latter. I think you pulled so many rabbits out of the hat for me. My stuff is complicated, I think. But nevertheless, I think the audience understands that, the listeners understand that, and they're going to reach out to you and at least attend the next workshop.
The next workshop, and I like to think of it as like Baskin Robbins. You just have to know what the flavors are. You just choose what you like, and then you just reach your goals by doing that. As far as
Hmm.
the workshop, the next one's on October 4th, which is a Saturday at 10 o'clock. If you want to go that free estate planning and elder law essentials workshop, all you have to do is call 214-720-0102. That's 214-720-0102, or sign up online at dallaselderlawyer.com. That's dallaselderlawyer.com. Uh, I hope this is a YouTube thing that we're relatively new at. If you like it, I hope you'll push that like button. I
Hmm.
thank you for your time and attention, and I hope to see some of y'all at the workshop.